I moved to Germany with dreams of a better life. You know the story. The one about incredible work-life balance, see, legendary efficiency, a strong social safety net, and the fantasy of cruising down the Autobahn with no speed limit. It's a powerful image, one that Germany sells very, very well. It's the reason so many of us pack up our lives and chase that promise of a higher standard of living. But what I didn't expect, what nobody really prepares you for, is the soul-crushing apartment hunt that feels more like the Hunger Games than finding a home. I wasn't prepared for a work culture so rigid it makes a military drill look spontaneous. And I certainly wasn't ready for a bureaucratic system that seems to run on paperwork, patience, and the tears of foreigners. If you're thinking about moving to Germany, or you're just curious about what it's really like behind the perfect veneer, then you need to hear the unfiltered truth. This isn't just a complaint session, it's a reality check. Because living in Germany is an experience of incredible highs and unbelievable lows, and today, we're talking about all of it. Let's start with the dream because it's a beautiful one. Germany is a pillar of economic stability in Europe. It offers fantastic job security, excellent public services, and a work culture that genuinely respects your personal time. The concept of Feierabend, that moment you clock out and work is completely done for the day, isn't just a suggestion. It's a cultural institution. No one calls you after hours. Your weekends are sacred. You get a generous number of vacation days, often 30, not counting public holidays. This is the Germany I was sold on. A place where you work to live, not live to work. A place where life is organized, clean, and safe. And in many ways, that Germany does exist. It's just that before you can enjoy it, you have to survive the entry exam. And the first part of that exam is finding a place to live. I call it the housing Hunger Games because that's exactly what it feels like. Germany is in the middle of a severe housing crisis, especially in major cities like Berlin, Munich, Hamburg, and Frankfurt. The government has a target of building 400,000 new homes a year, but they are falling desperately short of that goal. This has created a massive imbalance where demand wildly outstrips supply, with vacancy rates in some cities dropping below 1%. So what does this mean for you, the bright-eyed expat? It means you'll likely spend your first few months in a state of constant, low-grade panic. You'll find yourself on websites like ImmoScout24 for hours, sending dozens of messages for a single apartment listing, only to get a crushing automated rejection, or worse, no reply at all. If you are lucky enough to get invited to a viewing, you will not be alone. You'll be standing in a line with 50 other people, all clutching the same folder of documents, all trying to look like the most responsible tenant in the history of renting. You need a specific set of documents, a kind of holy trinity of German paperwork. First, your last 3 pay slips to prove a stable income. Second, a Mietschuldenfreiheitsbescheinigung, a document from your previous landlord confirming you have no rent debt. And third, the all-powerful Schufa report, your German credit score. How do you get these things when you've just arrived? That's the catch-22. You need an apartment to get registered, to get a bank account, to get a job, to get the documents. But you need the documents to get the apartment. It's a vicious cycle that leaves many new arrivals feeling hopeless. I remember my first successful viewing. I felt like I'd won the lottery. I was so desperate I almost didn't care about the apartment itself. I was just relieved the search was over. But then you have to decipher the rental contract. You'll see terms like Kaltmiete and Warmmiete. Kaltmiete is the cold rent, the basic price for the space. Warmmiete is the warm rent, which includes additional costs called Nebenkosten for things like heating, water, and building maintenance. But it often doesn't include electricity or internet, which you have to set up yourself. This brings us to the next great German challenge. You've got an apartment. You've signed the contract, you have the keys. The hardest part is over, right? Oh, you sweet, naive thing. You haven't truly lived in Germany until you face the final boss, the bureaucracy. It is everything you've heard and more. It's famously complex, notoriously slow, and overwhelmingly paper-based. Your first quest is the Anmeldung, or city registration. By law, you have to register your address at the local citizen's office, the Bürgeramt, within 14 days of moving in. This piece of paper is the key to your entire life in Germany. Without it, you can't open a proper bank account, get a German phone number, set up internet, or even get a library card. It is the absolute foundation of your new existence. But getting it is an ordeal. You'll go online to book an appointment only to discover the next available slot is in 3 months. So you wake up at 7 a.m. every day to refresh the website, praying a cancellation has freed up a spot. When you finally get there armed with your passport and the Wohnungsgeberbestätigung, a form signed by your landlord, you will wait. Your number will eventually be called, and you will sit opposite a civil servant who may or may not speak English and who will stamp your paper with a satisfying thud. You'll walk out of that building feeling like you've conquered a small mountain. But that was just base camp. The real climb is the Ausländerbehörde, the foreigner's office. This is where you get your residence permit. The stories about this place are legendary and mostly true. It's often understaffed, overwhelmed, and a place where timelines go to die. I have friends who waited over a year for an appointment. You will send emails into a void, call phone numbers that are never answered, and spend months in a state of legal limbo. The process requires a mountain of documents, and the rules can seem to change depending on who you talk to. It requires a level of patience you didn't know you had. And then there's health insurance, which is mandatory for every single resident. You can't live here without it. You have 2 main systems, public, Gesetzliche Krankenversicherung, or GKV, and private Krankenversicherung, or PKV. The choice is complex and has long-term consequences. Most people end up in the public system, where your contribution is a percentage of your income. The coverage is excellent, but navigating the system is another layer of administration you have to tackle immediately. Through all of this, you will accumulate paper. So much paper. Germany runs on physical mail. Your bank contract, your health insurance card, your tax ID, everything arrives in an envelope. My advice? Buy a folder, a big one. Because despite its reputation for tech and engineering, the German administrative state hasn't quite embraced the digital world. They are trying to digitize, but the process is slow and, ironically, often requires printing out more paper to manage the transition. So you found a home and battled the bureaucratic dragon. You are now a legal, registered, and insured resident. Time to work. This is where that famous German efficiency finally kicks in, right? Well, yes and no. The German work culture is a study in contrasts. The positives are genuinely fantastic. Punctuality isn't just a suggestion, it's a sign of respect. If a meeting is at 10 Uhr, it starts at 10 Uhr, not 10:01. Workplaces are disciplined, with a strong focus on getting things done during your working hours. The German Working Hours Act, Arbeitszeitgesetz, generally limits the workday to 8 hours. Staying late just to look dedicated isn't valued here. In fact, it's often seen as a sign you can't manage your time. When it's time to go home, you go home. This work-life separation is a cornerstone of the high quality of life here. However, this structured environment can also feel incredibly rigid. If you come from a more spontaneous work culture, it can be a shock. Communication is famously direct. Germans value honesty over platitudes, which means feedback is given without much sugarcoating. Your boss might tell you, "This report is not good, do it again." They aren't trying to be rude, they're being efficient. But it can take a while to get used to not taking it personally. There's also a strong hierarchy in many traditional companies. Decision-making can be slow because it has to go through the proper channels. The attitude of, "This is the way we've always done it," can be frustrating if you like to innovate. There's a process for everything, and you're expected to follow it. Another cultural hurdle is the formal address. The distinction between Sie, formal you, and Du, informal you, is very important. In many offices, you'll address colleagues as Herr Schmidt or Frau Meyer, and use Sie for years. Using Du without being invited can be seen as disrespectful. While many international startups in Berlin are more relaxed, this formality is still the norm across much of the country. It creates a clear boundary between professional and personal life, which many Germans appreciate, but it can also make it harder to form close friendships at work. Okay, we're deep in the weeds now. If any of this sounds painfully familiar, or if you're starting to sweat a little thinking about your own move, do me a favor and hit that like button. It lets me know I'm not just shouting into the void. More importantly, let me know in the comments. What's your biggest fear or biggest surprise about life in Germany? Reading through everyone's shared experiences is incredibly validating, and it helps to know you're not alone in this. So you're housed, registered, and employed. Congratulations! Now it's time to actually live here. And that means learning to navigate German daily life and cracking the social code, which can be just as complex as the bureaucracy. You've probably heard the stereotype that Germans are cold or unfriendly. I don't think that's true. A better word is reserved. In many cultures, a friendly chat with a stranger or a casual invitation to a colleague is normal. In Germany, there's a much stronger line between an acquaintance and a true friend. Friendships often take a long time to build, but when they form, they are usually deep and loyal. Small talk isn't a national sport. Conversations tend to be more direct and meaningful. So how do you meet people? The number one piece of advice is to join a Verein, or a club. Germany has a club for everything: sports, hiking, music, books, you name it. This is where people with shared interests connect, and it's one of the most effective ways to break into a social circle. Then there are the surprises of daily life. The most famous one is that everything, and I mean everything, is closed on Sundays. Supermarkets, pharmacies, clothing stores, all shut. This is thanks to the Ladenschlussgesetz, shop closing law, which enforces a day of rest. Your first Sunday can be a shock when you realize you forgot to buy milk. But you learn to plan ahead, and you might even come to appreciate this forced day of quiet, known as Sonntagsruhe. Another classic expat challenge is the recycling system. You will have multiple bins for paper, plastic, organic waste, glass, separated by color, and general waste. It is an art and a science, and your German neighbors will absolutely notice if you get it wrong. You'll also find that while card payments have become much more common, cash is still surprisingly important. While a 2025 study showed more Germans have used a card than cash in the last year, many bakeries, small shops, and local restaurants remain cash only. Always having some euros on you is a good rule of thumb. Finally, there's the language. In big cities and the tech sector, you can get by with English. But getting by isn't the same as integrating. To deal with bureaucracy, understand your rental contract, make genuine connections outside the expat bubble, and truly feel at home, you need to learn German. Official services are often not available in English, and underestimating the importance of the language is one of the biggest mistakes an expat can make. After all that, the apartment hunt, the bureaucratic nightmares, the cultural adjustments, you might be asking, is it even worth it? For me, and for millions of other expats who have pushed through, the answer is a resounding yes. Because once you overcome the hurdles, Germany rewards you in ways few other countries can. This country has a cultural richness that is deeply rewarding. You get to experience world-famous festivals woven into the fabric of the year. There's the magic of the Christmas markets, when cities transform into winter wonderlands. There's the wild energy of Carnival in Cologne, a week-long street party. And of course, Oktoberfest in Munich, the largest beer festival in the world. These aren't just for tourists. They are cherished traditions that offer a window into the German soul. You also get to enjoy that high quality of life you were dreaming of. Public transportation is extensive and reliable. The country is filled with beautiful forests, mountains, and lakes that are easy to access. There's a sense of order and safety that is incredibly reassuring. And being in the heart of Europe means you're just a short train ride or flight away from a dozen other countries. Let's talk about the cost of living. For a single person, monthly expenses can range from around $1,000 to $1,800, including rent, though this can be higher in major hubs like Munich or Berlin. While it's not the cheapest place, it's often more reasonable than other major Western European countries. Salaries are competitive, and the social benefits like robust healthcare and unemployment support provide a safety net that is hard to find elsewhere. So while the taxes are high, you can see what your money is paying for in the quality of the infrastructure and public services. Living in Germany is a paradox. It's a country that will test your patience in ways you never thought possible. The bureaucracy can feel inhuman. The housing crisis is a real struggle, and the culture can sometimes feel isolating. It is not the easy, perfectly oiled machine it appears to be from the outside. But it is also a country of incredible opportunity, stability, and beauty. It's a place that rewards preparation and persistence. It forces you to be more organized, more patient, and more resilient. The challenges you face in the beginning are intense, but they are surmountable. And on the other side of that struggle is a life of balance, security, and richness that is truly special. Moving to Germany is not a fairy tale. It's a real-life adventure, and like any good adventure, it comes with its share of dragons to slay. But if you come prepared, with realistic expectations and a willingness to adapt, you won't just survive here, you will thrive. So what about you? What has your experience been in Germany? Or what are you most excited or nervous about? Share your story in the comments below. I read every single one, and I believe our collective stories can help the next person who decides to take this leap. And if you want more unfiltered truths and practical advice about life as an expat in Germany, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Thank you so much for watching. Tschüss und bis zum nächsten Mal.